Okay, so the IMG's source attribute basically specifies where the file is located, and the alt specifies some text to display in case it doesn't find it. So, for example, let's just say I got that wrong, and that says 11, and I go in here and we refresh it. It doesn't show anything. It should show the alternate text, which is Bob 2010. You can also put width and height if you wanted. Control the exact size that it is. And this is generally done in something we call pixels. Let's just say 300px 300px. So there's a size, and I can change it. I can make that just 100 pixel. And that looks kind of dumb, but you can do it. If you want to leave it at its natural size, you just kind of pull these off. Always include width and height of an image tag so that when the browser loads the HTML file, it will know how many screen space to provide and can lay out the page properly. That's true. That's a good idea. You really should include it anyway. But when you do it, you also want to make sure you don't warp the image into where it looks like someone's face in a funny house mirror. So you have to play around with that a little bit. Entering new dimensions for an image that change its width and height ratio distorts the appearance. So that's what we just talked about. So if it's 200 pixels by 100 pixels high, you always want to do it in a dimension of 2 to 1. So the alt attribute is basically for some things for there's something called readers for the blind, and there's laws, ADA laws. We deal with this all the time. We've had an application that's been delayed by weeks because we have some ADA compliance issues. So I'll talk more about that as we go on because it's a major issue, and it's American with Disabilities Act, and it's really issues internationally because most countries have these similar laws. Germany has even stricter laws, so you have to comply with them. And the alt attribute allows you to give a description about what the picture is about. Void elements are simply elements that don't contain any content. They're what we would call action items alone. So, for example, an image is an example of that. So there should be a / there. Now, your H1 tags and your P tags all have content in them. So they're not void because there's something in there between the open and closed tag. In the case of the image, there's nothing in there, and that's because the content is really completely controlled by the attributes. So these are generally referred to as void elements. And generally, they have the closed tag at the very end of the tag. So there's one tag. There's not two tags. You can use images as hyperlinks too if you want. Very simple to do it, actually. I can just take this and I put the image inside of my hyperlink like that, and I close the anchor right there, and that does it. Now if I refresh this and I look at it, I now see that I've got a finger indicating that I can click on it. And it brings up my web page. So, and again, you can do height and width. And the only thing is the image tag is inside, or it's nested inside of the anchor, which creates the link. Of course, it's not just pictures. You can graphically create any image you want. Maybe you want to create a bunch of buttons in a graphical designer, so you're not clicking on a boring button. There's some sort of magical button to it. So special characters are generally characters that have a special meaning to HTML and or may not be on the keyboard. You want to display them as is without their special meaning being considered. So there's a coding way of doing it that starts with an ampersand and ends with a semicolon. And there's a couple of things you can put in there. You can put in some cases, word abbreviations. And there's also numeric codes. We talked about the ASCII codes and the binary codes a week ago. This comes into place where you can actually put those in. Some of the codes you have are the ampersand, because the ampersand has a special meaning itself. The apostrophe. Greater than and less than sign have special meanings. That's how tags are done. Quotes. Copyright. So this is one thing you may not have access to. A little copyright signal. You want to do it. And some characters that are not on your keyboard. So you can say ampersand copy. So if I want to put something in here, like I want to make sure people know that my site is copy protected or whatever, I say ampersand copy, semicolon. And now you can see, oh, it doesn't quite look like it came out right, does it? So now I got the little copyright signal. So, a couple of useful things for that. And you can do that with any of these character codes. Some of them aren't available. Trademark. So you can see you got some useful things here. And there's probably a whole list of them there, I guess. You can take a look at this one. Yeah, it gives you a whole bunch of them used in text and stuff. See a whole bunch of them used there. And there's other things you can do, like that horizontal line, which gives you a hard break. Should do it that way. That's interesting. Nothing here. And a horizontal break. Is that a BR or an HR? It's a BR. It should be an HR. So it gives you a break with a line down the middle. Unordered and ordered lists. Useful if you want to give a link. So let's say I want to go in here and want to have all these things ordered so they look a little better. I can say UL for unordered list. And I'm going to replace all of my P's with LIs. Then I need to close the ordered list. So now we have little dots and it's all indented. That's what that gives you. Greg, are you on a Mac? Yeah, you do have to change the settings to text only. There's somewhere in there where you set it to text only. That's pretty much what you have to do. So that otherwise, text edit on the Mac automatically tries to format it. You can also have what they call nested lists. And it could be any way you want. Changing this thing to an ordered list would be as simple as changing the UL to an OL. Now, instead of the dashes, it's got the 1, 2, 3. Or you can embed lists as well. Say here, contact Bob. Well, which email do you want? Maybe I just get rid of this whole thing altogether. And I say, okay, contact Bob. And we'll say, okay, do you want... we'll try another ordered list. I'll say, okay, do you want his Yahoo address? That's so many of them. If you want his College of San Mateo address. And of course I can put hyperlinks on all these as well. Give this timlin.net address. And let's leave it at that. And when we refresh it, miss something there. Gotta be very careful on these things. You leave one thing out. Okay, so you get a nested list as well. And you can nest them as many, any combinations of nesting as you want. Tables are pretty important. They create tabular data, rows and columns. Generally used for anything that fits nicely into a tabular data, including data from a database often fits well there. And you can create it generally with a table tag. Let me see if I have this example here. Instead of having to redo the whole thing. Let's see, which one is this? Okay, yes, I do have this one. Here we go. Let's just take a quick break. I've got